What's going on, guys? So I recently got an email from some friends of mine who also have a very popular YouTube channel, and they are going through a really tough decision-making process. They are in the market for a new truck, and they asked me if I could provide them some guidance and some feedback perhaps on that. Lo and behold, it's them calling. Hello?
Hey, it's Mark and Trish.
Hey, Mark and Trish.
How are you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Hold on, I gotta put it in reverse and turn off parking aid so I can still hear you.
You're having a great day today?
We are, it's been a busy morning getting out, but we are now headed to, we've got about a 45-minute drive, and we're headed out to go check out an F450. And man, this is just the perfect opportunity to touch base with you, and we've got 5 important questions for you.
Well, hit me with them, because I am willing to help however I can.
So here's the 5 questions up front, and then we can kind of go into them one at a time. It's when we're looking at trucks, the question that was popping up into our mind is 350 versus 450, the pros and cons of both. Chatting about gear ratio, you know, the different 3.55, 373, all of that.
410, 433, all that stuff.
Towing over 26,000 pounds.
Yeah, and what requirements might be, you know, what things that people need to consider when they get up over 26,000 pounds.
And then MSRP, let's have a sticker conversation.
Yeah, because we know when you and I were talking offline, you had some good suggestions on how to get, you know, 10,000 under MSRP, which I thought was good. But before we get into those 4, let's kick off with, you know, it's our philosophy that buying a truck after you select an RV is perhaps the proper way to do it. What are your thoughts on that?
When people ask me that question, which is a very common question, the best way I typically respond is it really doesn't hurt to kind of be looking at both at the same time. Mainly because you're gonna have to settle on a truck and you're gonna have to settle on an RV. So finding out which ones are more comfortable, finding out which ones are gonna suit your lifestyle better is, I think, an important decision, and it's not one that you should rush into. So oftentimes people will buy a trailer or a truck and they feel they have to make a quick decision to purchase the other. In my opinion, I think looking at both of them kind of in tandem makes a lot of sense, since they're going to be paired together most of the time or any time you're towing. So my best recommendation is to be researching everything you can, learning as much as you can about trucks. And in a video that I previously did, I talked about overkill is important. Having a truck that is more than capable enough to tow a trailer or a fifth wheel is very important, and understanding what trucks are available from what manufacturers, I think, is an important decision-making process. So I think, honestly, you can shop for both really at the same time.
Well, I think where we got snagged is that we fell into that, you know, we did not understand that the payload limitations on a 3/4 ton diesel were so low that it really eliminated all toy haulers and many fifth wheels. And you know, what's interesting is when people go to an RV and they have an RV dealer or an RV show, they have one thing in mind, but after they really start looking, they can say, you know what, I think we should go bigger. But if they already bought that 3/4 ton diesel or a 350 single wheel drive, they might feel the pressure to just do it anyway. Maybe that's how a lot of people end up way over their payload.
No, that's exactly what happens. People, you invest a lot of money in these trucks. They're very expensive. Trucks definitely haven't gone down in price. They're sharply increasing in price. And because of that, you're kind of stuck in a situation that once you get into a truck, you don't want to feel like you made a bad purchasing decision, so you tend to compromise. And that compromise can also compromise your safety, because you're absolutely right. A 3/4 ton truck can be spec'd out to have upwards of 3,000 pounds worth of payload, but that's going to be a stripped down work truck. That's not going to be your typical fairly well equipped truck that most people want to haul a travel trailer or a fifth wheel with.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the 3 things I just got out of that is you can look for your truck and trailer in tandem.
I like that.
I like that a lot.
I would just wait to pull the trigger until you know what you're towing.
So you don't have to make a decision overnight. Overkill is awesome. And then don't compromise your safety.
And I suppose when it comes to an F450, if you want to buy that first, you're not compromising anything. But
okay,
price.
we can see where Mark's mind is. But maybe you should tell us, JD, what pros and cons of a 350 over a 450.
If you were looking at a new truck, a Ford F350 is currently going to have TPMS, or tire pressure monitoring system, on board the truck, whereas an F450 currently doesn't have that option, even though it's said to be an option that will be included on the 2020 F450. That being said, you know, the F350 has some really nice perks to it in terms of what options you have later. For instance, you're going to have a standard 17-inch wheel on an F350, which means whenever it comes time to buy tires, whether you want a snow tread tire, whether you want an off-road tire, or kind of an all-season tire, your options open vastly. You have so many choices of tire sizes and tire options with an F350. With an F450, you're going to only really have one tire option. That's going to be a 225/70 19.5, since the 450 has a commercial size wheel.
I'm sorry to cut you off. That's a Continental tire. What does that tire cost?
So a Continental HSR or HDR tire, which is either going to be a steer tire or a drive tire, but the way Ford specs it out is pretty much the HSR for most of the applications. It's about a $350 tire. So it's pretty much on par with a higher end, you know, regular light truck tire. But again, you're not going to have a lot of options in terms of tires, and most quality tires for an F450 are going to be between about $300 and $450 per tire.
Wow.
And how long are you seeing, because they do have a really nice tread pattern, how long are you seeing that those expensive tires last? How many miles?
Well, and that's a great question. So they have not only good tread patterns for over-the-road usage, they have a very, very rigid and very robust tread pattern. So the sidewall, the strength of a 19.5-inch commercial tire is generally going to give you roughly 75 to 100,000 miles worth of usage before you're really scheduled to replace them.
Okay, so let's talk about the ride difference between the 350 and the 450. How much stiffer is the 450?
So the only real difference in suspension on a 450 versus a 350 is that the 450 is going to have really a different front spring. So the front spring assembly is going to be a 7,000 pound rated spring versus a 6,000 rated spring on a 350. In terms of rear suspension, they're virtually identical. There's really not any difference. Now, where the ride difference comes in is the tire thickness and the tire size. Because the tires themselves are more of a robust tire and it's a G-rated commercial tire, you don't get the flex in the sidewall that you would get with a standard 17-inch tire that you would get on a normal 350 dually. So a lot of people don't realize that part of your suspension and part of what makes your ride comfortable is the sidewall of the tire acting as a spring. When you put commercial tires on a vehicle, all of a sudden you lose that shock absorbing feel that the tire gives you, and the ride is going to be, if I had to put a percentage to it, it's probably 20% to 25% more firm or harsh than a 350 dually.
Okay, so that's pretty significant, and it certainly sounds like it's noticeable, but yet you still do it, and I believe that you do that for the turning radius and some of the pros that the 450 gives you. The turning radius, the increased brakes, the different chassis. So are those pros outweigh the cons in your opinion?
So in my opinion, the number one pro of a 450, besides just its really great aggressive look, because you get that front wide axle on it.
Don't even start.
You don't have
Don't
to
start.
sell it,
Let's not talk about that. All right, we'll stick to the facts.
He loves that. He loves that. Okay.
Okay.
If we take the cosmetic side and the man appeal out of it, and we stick to the practical side, if we stick to the practical side of this conversation, then the reality of the turning radius is a game changer. And I have talked to every manufacturer of dually pickup trucks about wide track front axles and putting them on because of the significantly improved turning angle you get. It is a life-changing experience. When you move from a 350 to a 450 and you realize how you can maneuver such a big truck and it kind of feels like a much smaller truck in terms of maneuverability, it really puts a smile on your face. And you guys know just as well as anybody who tows a travel trailer or a fifth wheel, especially a longer one, that maneuverability is king. And knowing where you can fit your trailer and how comfortably you can do that, and with what type of confidence you can do that, is important. And a 450 grants you that in a huge way with its turning radius.
Okay, so now, so those are great points.
Okay, I think we might be glossing over the pro of a 350 because I know what camp you're in, Mark.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so JD, maybe you could give us one pro that the 350 has, because there is a price difference, and so when people are making the decision, what is something that they would love about the 350 over the 450?
That's a great question. So when you look at the real differences between the 350 and 450, it comes down to that front axle. Yes, the 450 has a slightly larger brake system. It has slightly larger half shafts, which essentially are the portion of the axle that actually spins the tires. But all that being said, the 350 is pretty much just as capable as a 450. The towing numbers are so close. So 350, not just the one of, the smoother ride because of the tires, and not just because, you're going to see more of them, but because you're probably going to find one with every feature you're looking for, and you're going to be able to negotiate the price on it in a much more competitive way versus that of an F450.
All right. Those are huge. All right, you're sharp. I'm loving this. All right, so let's talk about gear ratio. I know in the 350s we've got the 355. If it's gas, it's 373. If we're in the 350, we've got the 410, and a 450 has 433. So,
okay, coming from my perspective, I don't know a lot about trucks, and I think there's a few viewers that feel the same way as I do. Maybe you could first tell us, what does this gear ratio stuff mean? What is it giving the truck the ability to do?
That's a great question, and I like to really simplify the answer. There's very complex ways to answer that, but the simplest answer is it's simply how many revolutions of your drive shaft equal one revolution of your tire. So if you have a 430 gear ratio like an F450, that means for every 4.3 revolutions or turns of your drive shaft, your tire is going to make one full revolution.
So it's really the strength behind that ability to turn the tire over?
It's how your transmission, your differential, which is what your drive shaft connects to, your axles, as well as your engine, performs as in terms of efficiency when trying to apply torque to the ground or power to the ground. So,
oh, that's good. I understand that.
Yep, and another way to kind of figure it out is a numerically higher number is actually a lower gear ratio, where a numerically lower number is a higher gear ratio. So a 430 gear ratio is actually a lower gear ratio than a 373 or a 355 gear ratio. A 430 gear ratio is going to give you better overall torque to the ground at lower speeds, and it's also going to be a little less efficient on the engine and transmission of the vehicle, but it's going to apply more torque to the ground, especially if you're going to be going uphill or you're going to be towing heavy and taking off from a stoplight or from a stop period.
So I noticed that there's a lot of 355 gear ratios on the dual wheel 350. And so, again, it's just a lot of inventory out there with the 355. Is that, at what weight, when you're pulling a fifth wheel, at what weight does the 355 become not a good option?
In my opinion, and this is really my opinion because people will differ with this in terms of what they're looking for, a 355 gear ratio is going to give you better engine efficiency, especially when you're going to be driving at highway speeds. That being said, it's also going to put more strain on your engine, transmission, and your differential when you're driving at lower speeds, towing heavier weights. So depending on where and how you tow your trailer, you're going to want to pay attention to your gear ratio, and it can also limit your maximum towing capability of the vehicle. And again, a 430, which is your only option if you go with a F450, or a 410, which is the max towing option on a 350, is going to be great if you plan on taking your truck up through the mountains, if you plan on taking it up hills, up tall inclines, and traveling a lot, which is what you guys do a lot of.
It's a great point. We've got an F250 now with a 6.7 diesel with a 355 gear ratio. Now, our engine, our travel trailer, weighs about 11,500 pounds. And with this particular gear ratio and engine, we will go uphill at 65 miles per hour at 700 RPM, like nothing I've ever seen. But we're also only towing 11,500 pounds, whereas moving 20,000 pounds, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely. How much of an impact is a 355 going to have in terms of positive fuel economy over a 410, like on an F350 or 430 on an F450? In my opinion, the numbers aren't too bad. You generally are going to see about a 1.5 to 2 mile per gallon difference under heavy towing with the two trucks, and about a 0.5 mile per gallon difference when not towing between the two different gear ratios. So it's not too bad. But if you're driving all over the country and you multiply that out by the number of miles that you're towing all over the country, that could definitely be a more impacting, concern to worry about.
What are some of the other limitations when you get over 26,000 feet? What are the limitations? Because I hear people saying, hey, once you go over 26,000, you need a CDL. And I think there's some misconceptions under the type of driving rating that someone would need.
Well, you're right. There are a lot of misconceptions, and for what a lot of people need to understand is that there's a difference between a commercial driver's license and a non-commercial driver's license in terms of towing over 26,001 pounds. So in several states, and it's not every state requires that you have a special license, but many states do, and there's a great resource online that you can actually go to that will provide that, and I'll send you a link to it so you can share it with your subscribers. But what you need to determine is if your state has special restrictions for towing or having a vehicle with a gross combined weight rating over 26,001 pounds. Now, if you have a truck pulling a trailer, that's generally for those states, it would require what's called a Class A non-CDL license, which is essentially a non-commercial version of the CDL license, which gives you the ability to tow at or above 26,001 pounds. If you are driving a motorhome, which I know that this doesn't really apply to you, but if your motorhome has a gross vehicle weight rating over 26,001 pounds, then that's generally a Class B non-commercial driver's license.
So let's say you're from Texas and your state does not require anything like that, but you have a trip planned to Victor with your 28,000 gross combined rig. Does that mean that you need to get this non-commercial over 26,000 towing license in order to even vacation in the summertime in California?
No. Now, that's kind of interesting. Well, Texas does require a non-commercial Class A, so I have a non-commercial Class A license for my specific rig. On the other hand, once you have a driver's license, since you can only legally have one driver's license in one state, as long as your license is correct for the state that you have it issued in, you should be in good shape.
Let's talk about MSRP because we're getting pretty close to the dealer, and I think he's already shaking his hand. So what tips do you have to because I bought our F250 for about 10,000 under MSRP, and you and I were chatting offline that that's possible. But what ideas do you have that you can share for people to get down below under MSRP like that? When
you look at discounts, 10,000 is generally what you want to aim for a 250 or a 350, regardless of if the 350 is a single rear wheel or a dually. On a 450, you're probably going to be lucky to get $5,000 off. I'm at 8,500 under MSRP right now, but we're going to see if I can sustain that number after we start talking. What you also have to keep in mind with any of these dealerships and discounts is they can take local market conditions into account. So when you look at a vehicle like a Ford Raptor, it usually sells $15,000 above MSRP, and that's because the dealership feels confident that they can sell it for that based on their local market conditions. So you have to keep that in mind. A dealership can really put the price, they can set the price however they want on a vehicle. The goal at the end of the day is that you try to convince them, A, that you're a serious buyer, because that means more than anything. B, that you know your numbers and you are in there with a set of numbers that you're willing to stick by. And C, more than anything, understand that dealership employees are almost required to go through the entire car selling process with you, which means I'm going to take your number back to my manager 25 times before I come back and agree to whatever we've negotiated with. That's just part of the car dealership sales mentality, that they have to do that. So when you go in there with the number that you want, just keep in mind that you need to really stick with your guns. You need to be willing to walk away and wait and be patient. And that's the hardest part for most people to digest, is that patience.
So hard. Well, buying anything correctly means that you got to buy it with some patience. And one of the things I've noticed, because, if you're going to scour the internet like I do, and you look at trucks over and over and over again, after a while, you kind of get tuned in to the right number and the right packages. And if you open up your search to 500 miles to your zip code, the dealer that is not maybe a Ford dealer, because they don't even know what they have. They took it in on trade. It could be a 350 dually, and it's over at a Jeep dealer, and they just ran the numbers, and they got it up on the internet. And I'll tell you, jumping on that stuff would not be a bad idea, but I think it comes down to really knowing your numbers, like you said, so you can recognize a good deal when it happens, because it's only going to be there for like a day or two.
Absolutely. You have to know your numbers, you have to be patient, and you have to do your research. You have to be an informed shopper. If you are not, you are liable to pay $5,000 or $6,000 more than the next person who bought the exact same truck as you.
Yeah, and then you got $5,000 or $6,000 there, and then you got the depreciation. Then people roll in some negative equity, and next thing you know, it's over.
Yep, exactly.
Man, this has been crazy helpful.
Hugely informative. Now, JD, I don't know if you know this, but there's kind of this unspoken thing going on between Mark and I. If he gets a 450, I get a dog.
That's a fair trade. That is actually good, because a dog is man's best friend at the same time, too. So Mark will probably end up taking the dog as well.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Very interesting.
A 450 and a dog?
Yes.
Yep.
So here's the thing. I mean, Mark is getting a 2-year commitment to a 5-year commitment. A dog is like a decade commitment.
Good point.
That's true. But you know what? At the end of the day, you both get to stare at the wide track front axle of the 450 and just drool over the fact that you got the biggest, baddest truck out there.
It really does look good. So anyway, we're getting pretty close to the dealer. We'll see what we can do. And as excited as I am, I'm more excited about making sure we get the right numbers, so that it's the right purchase. So if it doesn't make sense, then it doesn't make sense, and we will gladly leave.
Well, with your help, though, we can go in knowing what we're doing and just have a good head on our shoulders. So thank you so much.
Hey, it's my pleasure. It's great talking to you all. You have a wonderful day, and I hope that the next video I see from you guys is going to be in your brand new truck.
Mark does too.
There's a good chance, Katie.
Good deal.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Take it easy.
You too. Take care. Bye.